To share my screen. Can I get a thumbs up? Lindsay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Everybody? Yes, awesome. Okay. All right. I am going to minimize you, so jump in if you need me. Okay, so what we're looking at right here is a Materio project. All of you have been invited to this because you've been in trial. Some of you may have even subscribed at this point, but what we want to learn here today is sort of just the fundamentals. Materio is a really robust tool. It can do quite a lot, and I think it's easy to want to do everything all at once. But what we want to make sure is that you are understanding the core framework and setup and sort of the method that we have built into our software. So what we're going to do today is look specifically at a project. There may be questions around dashboard and things like that we can revisit at the end, but I think it's essential to understand how projects work. Also, I tend to go fast, so I'm going to try to go really slow. But again, just chat, Lindsay, if you need me to take it slower. All right, so we're in a project right now. And in a project, on the right-hand side, we have our visuals. This is a board that I actually built in Materio. And then we have things that we've uploaded, like our document set, our drawing set. So we have a proposed floor plan here and some interior elevations. And then we also have a stack. And that's actually the rest of my drawing set that I have tucked away over here in this stack. Now we actually want to go ahead and rename this. What we want to encourage in Materio is to be as organized as you can be. And also, a lot of the things we're doing in setting up our project is not only for our own sanity and for our team sanity, but it's also for those moments when we want to hand this project or pieces of this project off to a trade or a GC, or maybe you're a GC and you're trying to hand something to a designer. Either way, we're trying to facilitate, the collaboration that happens on a project. And so it's really important that when we have our visuals in here, as much as we can, we are being organized about it. So I'm actually going to rename this proposed floor plan. And that's helpful because later down the line, when I want to share something, it's going to have that name. It's going to be really obvious to me what it is. So this was the kitchen elevation picture. So we're going to hit save. So I definitely want to promote, organizing things into stacks, naming your pages, whether it's a board that you've built, naming that, or whether it's a plan page or an elevation or just a random note PDF that you've added in here. We want to make sure that this is organized. And I also want to call out on the organization of the bottom here that you can always come in and hide this from your clients. So by default, things that are in Materio, as far as visuals go, are going to be visible to your client by default. And once you invite your client in, you just want to make sure there may be some things like before photos or a board you're working on that you might not want to show to them yet. So just know that you can always come in and hide and show things to your clients. So this is on the right-hand side here. And then we'll also take a look really quickly at the tools that we have right here. These are really more useful as we start to build out our scope of work. We'll see our layers populate here. This is the ability to do full screen if you're really trying to dive into something and get really specific and kind of hide that scope. Communication and Materio can happen on the floor plans, in your scope and on your products. So we'll get into that. And then this is just moving our markers, measuring if we need to measure something really quickly, just pulling that and understanding measurements, and then actually creating items from this, which is totally fine, and you can do that. So if we wanted to add a light here, we definitely could. And we can kind of go through the process of adding this. I like to set up my scope first. So we're gonna hit cancel and we're gonna go through that. So that's just a quick overview of the right-hand side of your project. This is where we're going to create visuals, where we're going to upload visuals, and where our team is going to go to know that everything is here, right? This is the source of truth when it comes to what we're currently working on in the project. And then on the left over here, we have what's called our scope of work. And actually, I'm going to show you all just the more robust kind of built out one. This is an example of a project that is underway, that has lots of scope items. You can see this has a budget of 448,000. So we have quite a bit of information here. This scope of work is really going to be it's your whole project. It's where we budget things. It's where we spell out the products that we might want to order. It's where we get approval. It's where we track orders. So this is really kind of the spine or the backbone of your project. And it's going to evolve over time starting at the very beginning of estimate all the way through to making sure everything is invoiced. So your scope of work is here, and you can see that this is actually connected to the markers over here on the right, and we will actually go through how to set those up. So this is just a more sort of robust look at what the scope of work can be. You'll see statuses here, you'll see prices are crossed out, so initial estimates are sort of overwritten by approved product prices. And so it's really just a place to get a lot of information at a glance. And I can always come in and kind of collapse them and open up certain sections. So it's just a really great way to start to think about what goes in a project. So now we'll hop back over to our basics training project and we will get started. All right. So we are going to start with actually adding in categories. I tend to think about, again, a project and the setup sometimes via the way I think about trades, but you can also switch to do this by location. If you tend to think about things by room, you can absolutely do that. I'm going to click add category. And here is where you'll see the different categories of work that can be done on a project. Now, Materio is a system for both interior designers and builders or design build firms. So you will see a full list of categories here, sort of for both of those. So I like to look at it in the build order. Today, we're just going to work on first setting up our design services, and then we're going to come back in and add some other items. So in this case, what I want to show you is how you actually add in your design services, send over your agreement, and then we're going to start working on a project together. And again, whether you're a designer or whether you're a design build firm, a lot of you guys are spelling out your services up front and hopefully getting paid to do the design work, to actually do a lot of this work up front, and you're in a contract for that. So we have our design services category, and we can just come in and add in our design fee. You can see that I do have some saved items that pop up when I start to type in. And so we do have the ability to create standards in Materio and reuse those as needed. I'm just going to select one of these actually and drop it in. And then so I can type in, I can also just type in whatever I want, and I'm gonna not make this a selection and hit enter. And then I can go in and calculate what this might be. And maybe it's actually that it's my $150 an hour rate and I wanna have a markup on that and no tax. And then I wanna utilize our units here and say that I expect there to be 200 hours of this. So you can do either flat fee or kind of estimated hours in your fee structure. That's just two examples of how you can add in items in Materio. One via a saved item, one by just typing something in and hitting enter. And so we have our design services here. You can also come into your where you add your categories, and you'll see right here that we have kits. Kits are templates in Materio, and those are generally broken down by small groups of services or locations. So you can see that I have kitchen, half bath, laundry room, bathroom, bedroom furnishing, etc. I also have my design services by phase in here as well. And so you can really get creative or kind of build this to be around your process by adding in the custom kits that work for your team. I'm going to add in my design services. When I do that, it's asking me if I want to add all of these in. I'm going to undo the one that I already added and then hit them. So now I very quickly have all of my services listed in my project, and I'm ready to send over, a design agreement and a retainer for this. So that's just an example of how you can utilize the kits. And then we're going to come over to the share button. Share button might not be the right word or maybe the most intuitive, but just know that the share button over here on the top right of your project is the way that you get information in and out. It's the way that you invite, you can invite additional team members, you can invite your clients, external collaborators. It's also where you can export certain things, and it's also where you can send a contract. So we're going to go ahead and hit send contract. And then in this case, I haven't invited a client to Materio to be on this project yet, but I do have them in my contact list. So I'll just search for them. And then you'll see that it's populating my design services right here. And then my standard terms, I can come in, I can edit these terms, spell out what I need to spell out. I can even rename this design agreement. And then I can send this over. You can customize the email message. You can even choose how you want to show this. So if you did have additional items, they could show in certain ways, and then we're going to hit send. I'm going to sign this, and then they'll sign it. Once it's signed, that means, they've agreed to this. I'm going to send them a retainer, and then I feel like I can start building on my project because now I have secured that project. So we're going to go ahead and send a retainer over. Now, I know this can be a bit boring, a bit like tedious, but I want you guys to know that this is all possible here, right? We can spell out our services. We want you to work in a way that is profitable and good for you. So I just want to make sure that you know all of this is here. So we're going to head to our finances tab, which is the bottom tab in your project. And the first tab here is invoicing. And we're going to go ahead and hit new and do a retainer. Now, you can do this in a few different ways. You can collect a general retainer in Materio, and you can apply, hours or items to that later. You can also collect a deposit on those fees that you've outlined. So let's say you wanted to collect, a certain percentage of this design fee. You could absolutely do that. There are quite a few ways you can come in and bill for those. But I'm going to just come in and collect a retainer, and I'm going to call this my design fee retainer. And I'm going to go ahead and collect $40,000 to get started on my project. And I'm going to send this over to my client, Barbie. I will just note quickly, we do have Materio Pay. So if you are currently using another system for invoicing, we have a way for you to get paid through Materio to send those invoices and track everything on your project that's been paid for. So I highly recommend looking into that. And you can choose to pass that platform fee over to your clients, or you can choose to cover that as well. So just highlighting that as something to look into. If you do choose to subscribe to Materio, it's better to do that, sooner so that you can get through the, get it approved and get it going. So we're going to hit send, and I am going to send this over. All right. And you'll also notice that it is syncing with QuickBooks. And so we have a QuickBooks integration, and it is fantastic. And so this will sync over my invoice or my billing documents as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just mark this as paid. Of course, if you're using Materio Pay, that's going to be automatic. And I'm going to hit save. So now I have my retainer collected, all the boring stuff. I've got my money though, and it's secured. I've got my design piece spelled out. And now we're going to start to focus on building out our actual project. So I'm going to come in, and we're going to add in a kit to just move a little bit faster. Today we're going to do the bathroom. Let's do a bathroom. Should we do bathroom? Half bath. Let's do a half bath. All right, so what we're going to do is insert this item. Again, I'm using a kit here. So this is something that I've set up. I've had my standard pricing for this. I could have half bathroom, high, medium, low, different variations here on this. But I'm going to go ahead and add in these 9 items. And so very quickly, I have these in. Now, one thing I do want to call out specifically is that items in Materio can be service items, which we did before, right? Non-selections, these are usually fees or labor items. And then also one of the key kind of items in Materio that everyone loves and uses is selection items. So you'll see that these items right here have these question marks and these little pictures like, hey, something is supposed to be there. And it also says options needed. And that's because in Materio, a selection is something that we need to source, we need to find a product for, or we need to fill in something custom. We need to get that approved by our clients. And so those are going to be not only listed in your scope of work as these sort of really distinct items, but also they're going to show up in your selections workspace, which is the third tab down, as items that you need to find. And I like to think of this as a big visual checklist that your design team can look at and understand what's outstanding. Right now, everything is outstanding, right? So everything is empty, but this is just a great place to go and take a look at what's needed. And you'll see that here we have our budgets and the things that we need in the bathroom. So this is just kind of showcasing to you guys that there are 2 really distinct item types, and it's really important to just understand how selections work. Because we have a bathroom sink here or bathroom faucet, now we can actually start to add options to that bathroom faucet and then eventually present those to our client. So you can do that from here where we click add option and pull from our library. And let's actually search for faucets. We're going to go ahead and let's pull in this option. Let's pull in this one that's a little bit lower. And then we'll pull in this one as well. So I'm going to pull in 3 options for that bathroom faucet. So you can see that I can do that directly from the scope of work. And now I can see that these are the 3 options that we have. I can also do that from the selections workspace. If I wanted to pull in floor tile, I could come in and I could pull in floor tile that I wanted to present possibly to my client and add these in. So now I have multiple options there. So as we start to actually work on what's needed for this project, this is where we can start to organize what we're actually looking at and what we might want to show to our client. Okay, I see some chats going off. I'm assuming we've got it taken care of. Okay, Lindsay is, okay, got it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and look at one more item type that I kind of want to highlight here, which is a component item. So you can see this toilet has a little arrow. And that when you expand that, there are some things that are there for me to look at. And that's because in Materio, we have an idea of a component item. And that just means that the high level toilet, that's what your client's going to approve. But in order to actually execute that toilet, as we know, there might be multiple pieces that have to go into it. And so when I added in my kit, I had a saved item there. We can go through adding an individual one as well. But this is a great example. We have the bowl, we have the lever, we have the seat. We might even have labor. And so these are just indicators and sort of frameworks for me to make sure that I don't forget everything that goes into doing this toilet. And so that is what we call a component item. And let's actually add one in here. We're going to do a custom pillow. I always like to use this as an example. This is also really a great tool for upholstery or things that have multiple parts that need to come from multiple places. So I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to click the 0 here. Whenever you add an item from scratch in Materio and you've not estimated or budgeted anything yet, there will be an orange 0. We're going to click that, and we're actually going to make it a multi-component item. And this is where we would put our insert, we would put our fabric, we would put our workroom labor, and we'll actually turn this to labor. We'll hit maybe, we'll add in our delivery or shipping for this. It's really shipping actually. And so we're going to kind of start to spell out what's needed to create that pillow. And then we can even start to pull in placeholder products. So I'm going to go to my soft goods and add my insert. And you'll see that when I put that in as a placeholder, not only did it give me that estimate, but it also pulled in whatever shipping I had clipped for that item. So in your library, you can store information and products around those products and then pull them in really easily. Of course, fabric, this is something that's going to be, very different depending on what you pick, but maybe you want to pull in this one. And so you can just start to pull in what you need to kind of estimate what this would actually cost. And then of course, if I actually made this 4 pillows, then that's going to multiply everything. So again, just know that component items are there. We do have a video on our YouTube channel about that. Definitely worth exploring. It really makes all that back-end work that has to happen be clearly organized, but then simplifies it for what your client actually needs to approve. So I think I'm gonna stop there on that for now, but just know that it is there. Okay, how are we doing, everybody? Okay, we've got some questions. We're good. Okay. All right. So I do want to go over sort of flipping in Materio, and I want to make sure that all of you have experienced the clipper and sort of know how to get it. So we will do that. In your selections workspace, when you're first getting started, you know what, guys? I think I'm actually going to back up. Sorry, I'm going to confuse you all. We didn't cover floor plan markers, which is something that we always cover and everyone always has lots of questions about. So I'm going to back up and we're going to talk about that first. Let's go ahead and look at our floor plan here. Now, a lot of times the designers and design build teams that are coming to us are either doing drawings themselves or receiving architectural drawings. So a lot of the teams that are working in here have big projects, you know, and even if they're not big, they're doing full drawing sets. So we definitely want to make sure that you understand how to connect your scope of work to those drawing sets. And that can be really important even at the beginning when we're starting to plan a project, because we want to make sure that we have everything. So let's go ahead and look at this bathroom. All right, so
Mary
in,
Beth,
and
let
this
me
is,
interrupt you really quick. Will you
sure,
start with, because I loved like all the organization that you covered like initially with the documents and
mhm.
everything, like that was awesome. And I was thinking like the first thing I want to talk about is like how to reset the scale for plans or how to set the scale initially for the plans that you upload.
Yeah, of course. And that is going to come with the markers because I feel like it's a great question and it's sort of a great thing to highlight because it gets asked almost every single time. So we will go over that. All right. So in Materio, there are markers and we have 4 distinct marker styles. And I will cover setting the scale when we get to the ones that need it. So generally speaking, when you're looking at your scope of work, if you click any of the existing quantities, that is where you will get the opportunity to mark the plans. Because what we're doing when we mark the plans is we're actually quantifying what's going into the project. So I'm going to hit mark plans. And then you'll see that this marking style sort of guide comes up. We have the point marker, which is what I would use for a bathroom sink typically, which is what I'm marking right now. We have our area, our polygon, and our linear tool. So first, let's start with the point marker. And in this case, when I dropped my kit in, it actually said that I had 2 bathroom sinks, but I actually only have 1 in this project. So I'm going to hit the marker there. Hopefully everyone can see it. I'll make it really large so that you can see it. Oh, goodness. And then we are going to hold the space bar and zoom in. Okay, so we've got our bathroom sink here and we've got 1 of them and we're gonna hit save. And so you can see that now it just changes it to 1. And again, bathroom faucet, mark the plans, we're gonna mark it right here. Now, this can feel like, you know, why do I need to mark? Sometimes it's great for the takeoffs, we'll get there in a second, but why do I need to mark? Well, this is really great when we get to handing it off to our trades because they can actually engage with the floor plans and click on these markers to understand where things are going. So there is a ton of benefit to doing this. I like to also think of it as a tool to make sure that you are not forgetting anything when you are first spelling out your budget for your client. Let's look at ones that would require the other types of tools. So we're going to look at the floor tile here. You can see that I dropped in my item here, the original estimate of $10 a square foot. I'm going to go ahead and click the 1 square foot and hit mark plans. Now, the first time that you ever mark anything in Materio, like you're starting a project, you've uploaded a plan, if you go to the area, the polygon, or the line tool, you will be asked to set your scale. And right here where it says change scale, you're actually going to have a big yellow box right here. And it's going to be really hard to miss. It's going to say you need to set your scale. And you only have to do this 1 time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit change scale in this case. And this is the same interface that will pop up for you guys. You'll take this ruler and you'll find something on your plan that is a dimension that you know or is spelled out. And in this case, I'm going to do this 2 feet right here, and I'm going to drag this ruler. You can also rotate the plan if the one that you have, the dimensions are other direction, and you can just type in 2 feet here. Of course, if there's inches, you can hit that. Now, I'm going to save this as the default for my project. You can optionally save it for just this page. I like to do the default, and then if later I want to scale some elevations or other pages, you can go in and do those one-off. So now I'm going to come in, now that I have the floor plan scaled correctly, and I'm going to do the half bath floor tile here. We're going to do it just like that. And you'll see that it's calculating how many square feet I need. And then I'm also going to add in my waste factor there and hit save. So now I have that bathroom floor tile. I'm also going to go ahead and do the shower wall tile. And I'm just going to type it in and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to use the mark plans. And in this case, we're going to pretend like I don't have any elevations yet, and I just want an initial budget. So I'm going to use the line tool here, and I'm going to go around the shower walls, and I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to say that it's going, let's say, 8 feet up, and there's 15% waste. So again, even though I'm not at the point in my project where I have elevations yet, I'm just setting budgets, I can start to calculate that square footage using the tools that we have in here, and we'll just spell that out as 10% as well. So I just wanted to know that's there. And the polygon tool is really just, there we can use, let's go to a wall. And we'll pretend that there's going to be wallpaper here. We can also come in and use the polygon tool, which is really great for odd shapes, or if I want to go, around this door. Let's say the wallpaper is going on this wall, but it's not going on this door here. I can kind of do that and close it. So it's really handy for kind of coming in and making things, more specific. And then I can, again, hit my waste factor there. So that's a great way to use the polygon tool, is when you're trying to do more curved shapes or around things, or just sort of odd shapes. That's why you use the polygon tool. All right. So that is how you would use the plan markers. Very important. One of the most unique things I think about our platform is making those connections when we're really budgeting what goes into a project and what is needed. Okay. All right, I just realized we're at 30 minutes and we've got a lot to cover still. There's so much more. So I guess I'm doing a good job of going slow today. Let's head over to the selections workspace. I just want to quickly go through what it's like to invite your client in and to send these selections over to them. So in the moment that you are kind of ready to actually send something to your client or invite them in to view the project, that could be as early as like your first budget that you want them to look at. That can be as late as you're ready to send them, a proposal. But we're going to come in here and we're going to go to the top button here, the share button, and we're going to invite our client in. I'm going to select the client, who again, I've been sending invoices to, I've been engaging them, but they don't have to be on the project yet. So I'm going to come in and customize pricing visibility for them. The default one, which is prices on each item, is pretty standard and is kind of the great safe one. But there's a lot of designers who have specific questions around maybe showing just the room totals or just a lump sum for the project. Know that that is possible. You can always just do some of these other options like totals by category. You'll just want to make sure you uncheck selection allowances, because anything in Materio that's a selection is considered an allowance. So we just want to uncheck that. You can also choose whether or not you want them to view the project timeline, whether you want them to do other things. As a designer, most of these you're going to leave unchecked. Most of the time, you don't want to show them vendor information or anything like that. So when we're talking about clients, unless you're doing maybe e-design or something, you really don't want to be turning on most of those. And then, of course, we definitely want to control what it is that our client is getting notified about or how frequently they're getting notified. We have designers who have really busy or high-end clients that they don't really want to be getting certain notifications. And so you can actually come in and just, customize this however you see fit. And you can also customize the message that you're sending to your clients when they get that initial invite. So we're going to send that invitation over. And then eventually they will accept it. You can see that my client is a little dotted line around their icon. That just means that they haven't accepted the invite yet. And so we will, eventually they'll be solid and we'll be able to see that they're on the project. In the meantime, though, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it's like to send selections over for approval. So I'm going to come through here. Of course, we'd have much more in here, but I would go through sending these over to my client. There are going to be a lot of options here. We can choose if we want to send some or all of them, and I'm going to send them over. Once I send those over, they're moved out of this space and into client review. And this is when your client can come in. We can actually view it as our client, and we can come in and go to selections and take a look at what they see. They're going to be making decisions. They can open up these images. If there are multiple images, they can go through them. They can come in and discuss this with you. So this is another place that commenting is. They may have questions. They may want to know more information before they approve something. They can definitely do that. And then, of course, they can actually, make decisions on the things that they want. And they can approve those right here. So we're going to go ahead and just hit approve. Now we'll go back to our view and we'll see that now we have 2 approved items. So after it moves through the approval process, they land and approved. And this is where all the project management kind of magic starts to happen, where we've got everything that we need to look at here. Now, this is now going to go through, the full process of getting paid for, going through the orders, etc. Because of time, I do want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, but I just want to call out that I know I said I was going to go over Clipper. We do have a great 10-minute deep dive on the Clipper on our YouTube channel. So I'm happy to share that around as a follow-up in this week's call, just to make sure that you guys get that. We can also cover it if we have time. And then I do want to call out that once an item is approved in Materio by your client, or if you manually approve it, it'll be auto drafted into a purchase order by vendor. So if I had 10 items from Tile Bar or 10 items from Delta, they would all show up in this PO. And I could generate a PO here, or I could track an expense that I already have here because I've gone and I've placed the order online. But this is a really great, I think, reason if you don't already have the QuickBooks integration that has purchase orders on it. This works really well with that, with auto reconciling all these expenses with those POs. So it's a longer conversation or maybe a demo that you could watch on that. But it is really important to understand how easy it makes this process. When things are approved, they land here. And then you can go through different steps. If you are the designer and you're kind of preparing something for your procurement team member or procurement manager, you can add instructions here. You can attach files here if it's like a COM form, whatever it might be. And then you can come in and just mark this as ready to order and hit save. And then later, whoever's in charge of procurement on your team can come in and process those orders here. So just know that that's the speediest purchase order demo I've ever done. But there is connectivity here, right? As we get things approved, they're landing here. Let's just say that we actually have this one. I'll attach a really quick sample. When we confirm it and we make sure everything is correct, all of these unit prices and shipping is correct, and we record the payment on this. For me, I am connected to QuickBooks. So I'll say I use my Amex for this and we hit save. Now that's fully paid. Once it ships, we can come in and add that shipping information. We can paste in the information we got, in our email, add it here. It's shipped today. It's expected next week on this day, and then it's shipped. Again, if there are 10 items on here, we can say which items have shipped and which ones haven't, and then we'll hit save. And in true Materio fashion, what we're trying to do is create the connectivity in your project management. We're making sure that as things progress, we are updating that for you when you're taking the action. So yes, we want to mark this as shipped. And that's also going to show up over here in the approved section. So your team can come here and easily know things are shipped. They don't have to go digging through orders and where's what. They can also see that on the scope of work here. So we're just really starting to connect the dots through all of the parts of your workflow that are already happening. Yes, if you have specific questions around the fees in the project and versus what you're doing right now, I would definitely recommend writing into our support. You can either live chat them from your dashboard if you're in Materio down here at the bottom right, or you can email support@materio.co. And I say that just because, these kinds of things are always changing, and I want to make sure that you're getting the most robust. We have help articles on that, and so you can kind of go in and just compare them very directly in that regard. Great question. So if you come over, even in your trial, you should be able to look at the QuickBooks integration here and see what's possible. And it can tell you a little bit more about each thing. The one thing I would say is, are you heavy on procurement? Are you doing lots of orders? I would say you do have to have, I believe, the QuickBooks Pro tier. Don't quote me on that. It's not the very basic one, but it's the middle one, I believe, to do the purchase order syncing. I think that is a huge value add. because with that, if you're doing tons of procurement, it is, if you're adding your purchasing methods in there, which is right here at the bottom right, manage purchasing methods, you set that up in QuickBooks, it links here, it's going to auto reconcile all of those transactions. So I don't know if your bookkeeper's doing that, if you're doing that. I think it is worth having the pro tier, but I'm also 99% sure that you could subscribe to the basics tier of QuickBooks and you could sync just your invoices and just your expenses, right? Because those are also things that sync over. And then you could decide, once you really get orders up and running in Materio, then you could decide, okay, now's the time to upgrade that. In Materio, though, if you're running orders, you're going to be on that middle tier. Nothing is like prohibited on that tier as far as like what syncs over and what doesn't. We're not limiting that. So you're already going to be on that tier. One thing I will say, I'll just cover like what syncs over in the finances. Any sort of billing document, deposit, retainer, invoice, those are syncing over to QuickBooks. And you have an easy link right here where if you're logged into QuickBooks, you can just easily kind of open them up. If you look at your expenses tab here, any expenses that you add that are miscellaneous, let's say you went to print something or you took a flight and you want to track it as an expense and then you want to get reimbursed for it, all of those expenses are synced over to QuickBooks as well. And then your purchase orders are synced over to QuickBooks. And basically, when I say they're synced over, what it's doing is QuickBooks is creating a PO or a bill, and then we're creating a bill payment, and then we're applying payment to that bill, and all of that is being synced. And then the last thing that I think is kind of cool that it can do is if we are, let's say we're doing a work order through the PO flow here, or through the orders flow, and you're paying a subcontractor. I don't know if you ever do this, and you write him a check, or even if it's a workroom, a local workroom or something, and you write a check, you can actually go through when you record the payment. If you're using your business checking, you can choose to print the check in QuickBooks. So it'll queue up that check over in QuickBooks if you want to print it out. I mean, that maybe it's too old school, but like there are definitely firms who are printing checks and handing them to trades. So just know that that is there as well. And here you can store obviously name, email, phone number, their billing address if that's different than their project address, and any notes. But it's pretty slim. I wouldn't say, as someone who's used multiple CRMs, I don't want to call it a CRM in the way that I think of a CRM, but we are, inviting them into projects. They do have an account with us. We can communicate with them. Some of their information is here. So maybe it's more of a question, and this can be taken, off this call, but of what are you hoping for in a CRM? Maybe what are you using now? And just so we can learn a little bit more about that as we sort of explore adding more capability in that area of the tool.